Prime 9, the countdown show that covers the very best in baseball. Guaranteed to start arguments, not end them. This episode features the best players to never make an all-star team. Why 9? That's baseball. 9 players, 9 innings. Prime 9. You should know that we had a couple of basic ground rules for this show. Our candidates had to have played most of their careers since 1933, the year of the very first All-Star game.
That's a home run in the right, first home run of the series.
And we didn't consider anyone on an active roster, just in case they went on to make the team in the years that followed. What we did look for were players who had career totals or seasons that were so good, it's hard to believe they never made it to a Midsummer Classic.
Diving stop, Valentin. Throw to second, out there.
More than 1,300 men have played in Major League All-Star games, including nearly 500 pitchers.
Tim Lincecum is on tonight.
You're about to meet the men who, despite their numbers, never made the cut, starting with number 9 on Prime 9. In his 13 big league seasons for 4 different teams, John Denny boasted a solid .532 winning percentage.
He was a fierce competitor, very, very intense.
John Denny, not an easy customer to contend with.
Knew what he did best and got the most out of his ability.
Tremendous pitcher with great control, great confidence.
Wasn't afraid to throw the ball inside off the plate. Wasn't afraid to throw the breaking ball behind the count.
That's the mark of a pretty good pitcher. Throw that breaking ball on 3 and 2.
He wasn't going to lay the ball in there and let you beat him. You're going to earn it, and that's what you got to do.
That can't be right. We're going to look at that one more time.
In just his second full season, Denny had the league's best ERA.
Not hard to understand why his earned run average stands as low as it does at 267. He's given up at 83 hits in 104 and 1/3 innings of pitching.
The numbers he put up and not making an all-star team, that's kind of surprising to me.
Especially when you consider his '83 campaign with the Phillies, when he won 19 games and lost just 6.
Denny finished second in the league in earned run average at 2.37, topped the National League in winning percentage at .760.
He is just one of 2 pitchers ever to win the Cy Young Award, yet never make an all-star team.
It's kind of like never going to get to play in a World Series. You know, you kind of have to have a little bit of good fortune.
Well, Denny did get to pitch in the Fall Classic in 1983.
And what a pitcher John Denny's been this year.
But how does someone not make an all-star team yet win the Cy Young Award?
Some of them don't have very good first halves.
After July the 8th, Denny's record was 6 and 5.
But then come on like gangbusters and have great second halves.
Since July the 12th, a remarkable record of 13 and 1.
And I think that's why sometimes those guys are overlooked at the All-Star game. You know, they're looking for guys with huge numbers or big fastballs, but he'd go out there and win a ton of games for you.
John Denny, 19-game winner, and what a story.
One of those rare breed, Bob Forsch, made his Cardinal debut in 1974.
Bob was just a great Cardinal mainstay. He was a 20-game winner. He'd win double digits every year.
Forsch, a 15-game winner, a previous 20-game winner in the National League.
And to play as long as he did, he had the 3rd most wins for a person that never made an all-star team.
Forsch's 168 victories without an all-star nod is surpassed only by the all-star era win totals of Mike Torres and Danny Darwin.
Forsch was just a consistent, solid starting pitcher that would keep you in a ball game every time he took the ball.
No-nonsense kind of a pitcher. You got that right.
What I thought he brought to the mound was a lot of resiliency.
Forsch does not wilt under the pressure of that bases-loaded situation.
He threw strikes. He didn't walk hardly anybody.
He tries to get hitters out on balls that are just off the plate.
There's nobody can hit his hook. It was just an ugly thing. He just made an ugly sound when it came up to the plate.
You call it a drop? Here it is.
He didn't have tremendous stuff, but he had good stuff. He was a very big part of our Cardinal teams.
Leadership isn't something that's just given someone. I think it's something that is earned by the atmosphere that someone creates.
And Bob stirred up quite an atmosphere in Game 1 of the '82 LCS.
Bob Forsch nails his 4th strikeout victim. 8 in a row retired by Forsch. Bob Forsch retires 11 in a row to win the game.
Forsch's Cardinals went on to capture their 9th World Series title.
A World Series winner for the Cardinals.
And he's still the only pitcher since '33 to throw multiple no-hitters, yet never suit up as an all-star.
It's the first time in the history of Cardinal baseball that a pitcher has 2 no-hitters.
He threw 2 no-hitters in the major leagues, and it's incredible that with his talent, he never had the opportunity to make an all-star team.
Welcome back to Prime 9, featuring the best players to never be an all-star. You've already met both 9 and 8, which brings us to number 7.
Fastball lined into right field for a base hit. Phillips hit it so hard.
Ah, wow. TP. TP, he made his best out of himself because he was a tremendous hitter.
And that one carries very well to right field, and that one is gone off the bat of Phillips.
He's one of those guys that well respected in the game, went out and played hard each and every day.
Makes the catch. Tony Phillips stays with it.
Oh, a grinder. He was a gamer. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Tony Phillips played multiple positions for 6 different teams in his career, but not one was an all-star team. Maybe his versatility worked against him.
I think he never make it to the all-star team because he one position.
But there were at least 4 prime positions that he would play. Sometimes the versatility could hurt a player. They don't associate that player with a certain position.
Ball four, Phillips walked.
He walked a lot, 5 seasons with 100 walks.
He doesn't swing at many bad pitches.
He had a very good eye. He was very disciplined, had real high on-base percentage.
Great leadoff man, probably a little before his time because a little bit before the walk was really appreciated and the on-base percentage was really appreciated.
Tony also had a bit of a temper, a character trait that seemed to follow him wherever he played.
He's screaming at John Ho.
He was such a combustible personality. That caused a lot of problems.
Inside of that hit him. Tony Phillips upset with Bobby Ayala.
Competitiveness, his tenacity, his eyes, they were always just boom.
He's a very volatile baseball player.
Well, whatever the reason might be, he is one of just 2 retired players in the All-Star era to collect 2,000 hits and never be picked for an All-Star team.
But I don't think TP care about it. I think he'd rather have the 3 or 4 days off than go to the All-Star game.
When Toot was in Boston, he learned how to pitch inside, and when he got to the bigger ballparks in St. Louis, his game really came on.
And thanks to his thinking man's approach to pitching, John Tudor helped lead the Cardinals to a pair of pennants.
It wasn't overpowering, but he located it well. His changeup was just devastating.
Strike 3, another off-speed pitch.
And then every now and then he would throw his little curveball or slider in there, and you weren't expecting that.
Swing and a miss, and down goes Durham.
Tremendous command, very quiet type competitor. Probably had a lot of drive inside.
He appeared to be in total control and command of all parts of the game. He did everything well. Even was a decent hitter, ran the bases.
Trying for 3. The throw, he's safe.
When you say his name that he was never an all-star, that's hard to believe.
Tudor was sensational in 1985, but not at the start, and that hurt his all-star chances.
He was 1-7. He detected a mechanical flaw. He changed it. He's been unbelievable since then.
He won 20 of his last 21 decisions and finished second in the Cy Young Award voting.
Over a period of 23 starts, Tudor had 10 shutouts.
John Tudor was just unbelievable today.
Since the end of World War I, Bob Gibson in 1968 was the only other Major League pitcher ever to have a season in which he had as many as 10 shutouts over a span of 23 starts.
Had he done the bulk of that in the season's first half, it's likely we'd be talking about somebody else.
Toot, you should have been in an All-Star game. Those years in St. Louis, the years you had, you were more than deserving to be in the All-Star game.
Welcome back to Prime 9, featuring the best players to never be All-Stars. John Denny made this team at number 9, followed by Bob Forsch. Next came Tony Phillips at 7 and John Tudor at 6, which means it's time for number 5.
Hal Trosky was a big left-hand hitting first baseman, came out of Iowa in the early 1930s with the Indians. In fact, the same scout found him in Iowa, who later found Bob Feller.
Trosky was a low ball hitter, very powerful, hitting below his belt. It was very dangerous to pitch him there because he had a lot of power and he could hit the ball for a great distance.
But despite the impressive numbers Trosky compiled in his prime, he simply played in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Hal Trosky had the misfortune to be a super hitting first baseman in the 1930s in the American League when you already had Hank Greenberg, you had Lou Gehrig, you had Jimmy Fox. So if you wonder why Hal Trosky wasn't named to the All-Star team despite incredible hitting performances, just look who was ahead of him.
Trosky led his league in 36 with 405 total bases, just the third different first baseman ever to reach 400 in a single season.
In 1936, Trosky hit .343 with 42 homers and 162 RBIs. Same year, Lou Gehrig hit .354, 49 homers, 152 RBIs. Jimmy Fox, same year, .338, 41 homers, 144 RBIs. That's the only time in Major League history 3 guys ever won 40, 140 with a .330 batting average in the same league in the same year, and they all played the same position, first base. So when it came time for the All-Star game, Gehrig was more or less an automatic choice. Fox was regarded as the biggest hitter of his time, and Hal Trosky, unfortunately, got overlooked.
He was also dealt a bad hand medically just a few years later.
Trosky's career ended, for all practical purposes, in 1941. So if you look at the record books, you think, oh, must be World War II. But it was not. He suffered from migraine headaches so debilitating that he had to quit.
In any other era, Hal Trosky might have been an all-star, but not in the AL in the 30s. The fact that pitcher Ellis Kinder hadn't made an all-star team was no surprise to fans during his first few years in the majors.
1948, went to the Red Sox, and although he won 10 games, but there was really nothing that he had done beforehand to make one sit up and think, this guy's ready to make the leap.
But 1 year later, Ellis put it all together on the mound.
The year that he had in 1949 came completely out of the blue. The guy was 33, 34 years old and went 23-6. His record at the All-Star break was good, but it was not enough to get him a nomination to the All-Star team. There were many starters with better records.
Kinder never did become an All-Star as a starter, but it appeared he might have had a chance when he adopted a new role and developed a new pitch.
What really made him is he developed a change of pace that was terrific. And once he did that, he became really a tough pitcher to hit. And then they made him a reliever because he could come in those late innings and get the hitters out.
Kinder went on to lead the league in saves twice and set an AL record for appearances. But All-Star games were not yet rife with relievers.
Back in those days, relievers were just another person, and they didn't pick them for the All-Star team.
It didn't help that Ellis didn't reach the majors until his 30s and was referred to as old folks.
Everybody thought that Kinder would fall apart because of his age, that his success was a very tenuous matter indeed. The guy pitched until his 40s, and when he quit, he was still pitching well.
Kinder became just the second pitcher with 100 wins and 100 saves in his career. But in his bio, the words All-Star are nowhere to be found.
It's hard for me to believe that Dennis Leonard was never an all-star because he was the dominant pitcher of the Royals teams when they were starting to make their run in the 70s and 80s. When you think about a Royals pitcher and a starting pitcher, you have to think about Dennis Leonard.
It's true. From 1975 through 82, Dennis won 130 games.
He struck him out.
The third most in the majors during that time.
You knew when Dennis took the ball, it was basically bullpen, take the day off, because I've got 9 innings today, and he was our guy.
I can throw 9 innings. I think the first couple of years I probably averaged 135, 140 pitches a game. I was blessed that I never really had arm problems.
A lot of people don't realize, I think he had 22, 23, 24 complete games one year. He wanted to be in there in the 9th inning, and as far as I was concerned, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Struck him out.
You leave the game, how would you like to be remembered?
As a 20-game winner.
That he was, a 3-time 20-game winner, still the only Royal to accomplish that feat.
Breaking pitch struck him out.
Dennis Leonard is the only pitcher since the All-Star game began in 1933 to have had 3 20-win seasons and never make an All-Star team.
And 2 of those 21 seasons were back-to-back. Maybe it would have helped Dennis had they played the All-Star game in October.
Struck him out. The inning is over.
There are legitimate reasons as to why he never was an All-Star. If you take 1977, 1978, and 1980, and you look at his records up until the July All-Star break, he's a 500 to sub-500 pitcher.
For whatever reason, I usually came when the weather got a little bit warmer in the Kansas City area. I was more of a warm weather pitcher.
Oh yes, Dennis saved his best for last, with more wins and a lower ERA in September than in any other month.
Got him, strike 3. I think every team would have taken Dennis Leonard from the All-Star break to the end of the season because that's when he dominated.
We now return to Prime 9, where in this episode we're featuring the game's best players to never be an All-Star. These are men who played the bulk of their careers since the first All-Star game in 1933, and we didn't consider anyone on an active roster either. So now it's time to meet the men who might have been stars in their own right, but were never an All-Star. We begin with number 2. In Game 1 of the 1988 World Series, a badly hobbled Kirk Gibson shocked everyone with his game-winning blast. Would it also shock you to know that he never made an All-Star team?
That's the first time I ever heard it. I am very, very surprised that he never played in one.
Yeah, that surprised me very much. I would have thought that he was picked 8 times because he certainly deserved it.
There's no question in the minds of many who played with and against him that Gibson had all-star talent.
When he first came up with the Tigers, he could beat you with power. He can hit a ball in the upper deck in Tiger Stadium in a heartbeat.
There's a belt to left. That's gone. Let's watch it. Where is it? Is it out of the park? Yes. It's out of Tiger Stadium. Kirk Gibson has done it.
He's one of those guys that at any given time could really hurt you. Power, speed, he had the complete package.
He's in there.
I remember them saying that he had the fastest time down the first baseline right after Mickey Mantle, and he had the power to go along with it, and he was intense.
Intensity, ferocity, ultra competitive.
Middle infielders feared him. He'll tear you up. Kirk played the game like a tight end when he was at Michigan State. He played the game like a football player.
Billy, get out of here!
Did you see him?
Get out of here!
A good guy to have on a team. Probably the most exciting teammate I've ever had. And I still remember when we were playing the Montreal Expos, ball got past the catcher.
Right on through.
And he scored from second base, and he won the game.
Kirk was never an All-Star, but in 1988, he was an MVP.
And it was the best MVP vote in the history of the game, in my mind, because even though the numbers weren't enormous, what he did for our club and how he propelled our club was MVP stature.
He's the only player in Major League history ever to have won an MVP award while never being an All-Star in any season of his career.
Everyone remembers the home run in Game 1 of the World Series coming off the bench. But a lot of people forget what he did in Game 5 of the 1984 World Series, where he clinched the World Series for the Tigers.
You mean you're talking about striking him out? Yeah. We don't want to walk you. Here's the pitch. He swings as a long drive to right, and it is a home run for Gibson.
When you contribute so much to 2 World Series titles, you'd think an All-Star berth would be in your resume. But no.
Batting third, in right field, number 15, Tim Salmon.
It seemed like Tim Salmon was always swimming upstream when it came to the All-Star team. This, despite an impressive 14-year career with the Angels that began with Rookie of the Year honors.
Salmon has just walloped his 30th home run here in his fabulous rookie season.
When he was younger, incredible two-way player.
Great guy to hit in the middle of the order. Great defender.
He makes the catch. What a play by Tim Salmon.
Just a great ball player.
No player who began his career after the first All-Star game and was never a part of the Midsummer Classic retired with more home runs than Salmon.
Tim Salmon, just looking at that career.
Tim Salmon now with 1,000 RBIs in his Major League career.
It is surprising that he never made an All-Star team because a very, very good player. He was a star of that team.
And not just any team, for Tim helped the 2002 Angels win it all.
There's a high fly ball deep to left center. It is a home run, and the Angels are back ahead. The second home run of the game for Salmon.
His ability to hit in the middle of a lineup was very evident during the 2002 series when we won the World Championship.
You win the last game of the year, the last game that can be played, you won it, and that means you're a world champion.
World champion. Is that amazing?
What's even more amazing is that for all he did in his career, Salmon never earned an All-Star berth. It's a slight that has spawned any number of theories.
The competition in the outfield is sometimes pretty intense to make all-star teams.
You know, it's unfortunate. Maybe he's playing on the West Coast that got him or something, but he definitely deserved to be in one of those.
Well, it's a shame that Timmy never made the All-Star team, but I'm sure he wouldn't trade his World Series ring for an All-Star appearance.
And it fits the first time. My goodness, that's what you play the game for right there.
Although Hall of Famer Hank Greenberg was selected to 4 All-Star teams, one year he missed deserves special mention. The year was 1935, and Hank reached the All-Star break with a mind-boggling 103 RBIs, but never got to play in the game. Why? Well, he wasn't invited. Seems 2 other first-sackers named Jimmy Fox and Lou Gehrig got the nod over a man who hit the century mark in RBIs by early July. But Hank did have the last laugh, as he went on to beat both Fox and Gehrig, among others, for the American League MVP award in '35, and his Tigers captured the World Series title. Hank finished with 170 RBIs that year and won a second MVP honor in 1940. And it's pretty safe to say he'll always be the only man with more than 100 RBIs at the All-Star break to not make that year's team. That's our Prime 9. What's yours?